Why do we need to learn how to work with fractions?
I wanted to share with y'all a few minutes about what a fraction is and the things that you need to remember. A fraction is just a part of a whole. The part that goes in the top is called the numerator, and the part that's in the bottom of the fraction is called the denominator. It's important to remember and to be able to explain the difference of the two. So when you are doing your Webquest product, make sure that you include that. The other thing to remember is that a decimal is just another way to represent a fraction, and sometimes students don't make that connection. So it's important for you to understand that and to be able to explain how those two things are related. Try your best to remind the students that are younger than you that your product is being designed for, that fractions are not scary and they're not hard once you totally understand them. Your job is to help explain and make sense of the vocabulary and the processes of working with fractions. You can do it. The next thing that you need to remember to include is the process of how to simplify and reduce your fraction. It's important to remember your answer should always be reduced as much as possible. You also need to remember to include information about improper fractions and mixed fractions. Remember, mixed fractions are fractions that have a whole part and then a fraction part in addition. So this example, 3 wholes and 1/2 of the next part. So that's something to keep in mind. The other thing you need to remember is that improper fractions are the bigger number is in the numerator or the top of the fraction, and the smaller number is in the denominator or the bottom of the fraction. So make sure to include that vocabulary and study up on those concepts if you're a little bit rusty. One of the things that I think is the hardest for students to remember how to do is to add and subtract fractions. Make sure that you remember that you must have a common denominator when you're adding and subtracting fractions. Be sure to include some instructions on how to complete that process when you turn in your submission. The last thing I wanted to kind of talk about was the multiplying and dividing fractions. Multiplying is very easy because it's just like simplifying. So remember to come up with some good strategies when you submit the work that you produce. The last thing is the dividing. Sometimes students feel like that is hard because it involves more than one fraction at a time. But remember, you can change any dividing problems into a multiplying one if you take the top divided multiplied by the reciprocal of the denominator. So remember, reciprocal just means to flip it. So you're going to take the top and keep it the same, change the division to a product, and then flip or take the reciprocal of the denominator, and then you just multiply, which is just like simplifying. So hopefully by the time you get done reviewing the information, you'll be able to be a good instructor on the way to complete these problems correctly. I hope this summarization helps you to remember some of the main things that you need to remember about working with fractions. Do your best to use the resources that I've provided in this Webquest in order to brush up on your fraction skills. I'm excited to see the product that you come up with to help the younger students at our school to understand and master the processes that need to be completed in order to work with fractions. And I think this work should help you be more confident when you run across problems that involve fractions in your high school math courses.